I flew 1,100 miles to hand my mother back the diner she'd given her whole life to, and the front door was locked against her instead. A laminated sign hung where the open placard used to swing. Through the screen door, I could hear my sister-in-law's voice telling someone the kitchen was finally running the way it should. I checked twice. Same brick building, same gold letters Lucinda's. But the woman vacuuming a windowless storage closet in back, the one nobody had told me still worked there at all, was my own mother. She didn't hear me come in. She was folding paper napkins into a stack nobody had ordered, in a room with no windows, like she'd been doing it for weeks. She looked smaller. I hadn't set my bag down. And the version of this place I'd pictured on the flight home already didn't exist. I'm Dana Whitfield, a travel nurse, 13-week contracts, 4 states a year, ICUs that smell like bleach and other people's worst days. I took every overtime shift Houston and Tucson would give me because my grandmother's diner went into foreclosure the year she died. And I wasn't going to let a bank erase 40 years of her handwriting off a menu. I bought the building outright. Deed in my name. Mine alone. My brother Patrick offered to run it day to day while I worked. His wife Renata and her mother Sylvie needed somewhere to land after a bad lease, and Patrick asked if they could take the upstairs apartment, just for the season. I said yes. I thought I was helping family. I had no idea what helping was about to cost the one person who actually still showed up to work that counter every single day my mother had been quietly demoted to a closet with no windows, and nobody in my family thought that was worth a phone call. Nobody warned me. The diner had been Lucinda's since 1981. She ran it through 2 recessions and a kitchen fire and never once opened a minute late. When she passed, the bank gave the family 90 days before foreclosure. I made an offer with everything I had. The closing took 4 months and every dollar from 3 years of overtime in units where people coded on a Tuesday and you didn't get to fall apart until Wednesday. Ever build something so carefully that you forget to ask who else gets a key? Patrick offered to run it. I said sure. I had no idea through the winter was the last honest sentence anyone in that house would say to me for 14 months. My mother wasn't on payroll. She just wanted the smell of the griddle, and somebody calling her Han the way her own mother used to. Customers asked for her by name within a month until Renata decided the diner needed repositioning. She swapped the menus for chalkboard ones and started a Thursday and Friday members' supper, $85 a head, cash only, by invitation, run out of Lucinda's own kitchen after the regular dinner crowd cleared out. I wasn't consulted. She told my mother, gently at first, that the supper club had a different energy and her shifts would be better spent prepping in back. Prepping became inventory. Inventory became, 3 weeks ago, a storage closet, folding napkins for a service she'd never be part of. She never complained. My mother stayed quiet for the same reason she always does. Renata had told her I was already drowning, covering a coworker's leave on back-to-back night shifts, and a good mother doesn't add weight to a daughter who's already carrying that much. She believed it. I never got the chance to tell her it wasn't true. I found the next part by accident, on the diner's shared drive. Looking for a tax document the morning after I landed, a folder labeled Heritage Brand Partnership sat beside the payroll files, a licensing inquiry from a regional grocery chain, interested in jarring Lucinda's chili and cornbread mix under a Lucinda's original label. The contact name on the reply wasn't mine. It was Renata's. Sent 2 weeks ago. She'd offered a stranger 70-year-old recipes that weren't hers to license, from a kitchen that wasn't hers to run, under a name that wasn't hers to sell. What does it cost a family when one person decides someone else's legacy is just inventory? And the recipe box itself, my grandmother's actual handwriting, the one I'd set back on the shelf the day we reopened, wasn't on that shelf anymore. I called Patrick. He didn't pick up. He never does. His business partner mentioned, in passing, that Patrick's company had lost its insurance bond 8 months back. 8 months ago is also when the supper club started. When a sibling's business quietly collapses and cash starts moving through your family's kitchen at night, is that really a coincidence? I had a missing recipe box, a stranger's name on a licensing deal, a brother who'd stopped answering, and a mother who'd spent 3 weeks in the dark. None of it explained the number that still didn't add up. $22,000 moved through the diner's account in 90 days that I had never approved, never seen, and never signed for. Whose name did? The $22,000 had a name attached to it after all. Mine, just not really. I drove to see Teresa Boyd, a business attorney 2 blocks off the courthouse square. I laid out 3 things: the deed, the licensing inquiry, and a home equity line of credit filed against the building 11 days earlier. My signature. Forged. Teresa set the application beside my real signature on the purchase note. Even a careful forgery has a rhythm that doesn't match. She said mine slows down on the W. This one doesn't. How do you explain to a bank that the woman who allegedly signed for $40,000 in person was on a night shift in another state? Forgery on a loan application is a felony in this state, Teresa told me, and it voids the application the moment the bank's fraud unit confirms it. I'd be filing. The supper club, running off the books with no food service permit, was a separate county health code violation, and the licensing inquiry needed my consent as both the building's owner and Lucinda's only listed heir, consent nobody had asked for. Heritage isn't inventory. Teresa said she'd file the fraud report and the cease and desist by Monday and call it what it actually was, not a family disagreement. You don't kick down your own door, she told me. You build the paper trail and let it open the door for you. There's a particular kind of tired that has nothing to do with sleep. It's the tired of being the reliable one in a family that quietly assumes reliable people don't need to be told the truth. Every family has the person who shows up, who covers the gap, and gets thanked with more responsibility instead of less. If you've ever been the dependable one in your own family, you already know that loneliness of being trusted with everything except the truth. Being dependable is not the same as being told the truth. That feeling doesn't stay in one house. It follows you to every kitchen table you ever sit at again. The part I keep coming back to isn't the forged form. It's my mother. I found her that evening exactly where I'd left her in the storage closet, icing a cake for an event she hadn't been invited to attend. She looked up with flour on her wrist and said the kind of thing only someone who spent a lifetime making herself small enough to fit anywhere would say. I didn't want to be in anyone's way, sweetheart. It's her diner. My grandmother built this place so a woman who scrubbed other people's floors as a teenager would never apologize for taking up space in a room again. And here was her daughter, doing exactly that, in a closet, icing a cake for strangers. I've coded patients at 3 a.m. without raising my voice once. I stayed calm. Calm, for me, has always meant I've already moved past the feeling and into the plan. I knelt next to her and told her the only thing that mattered, we weren't asking permission for anything, starting tonight. What I didn't tell her yet was exactly how public starting tonight was about to get. Patrick called back that night, and for the first time in 14 months he sounded like my actual brother. The contracting business had folded quietly the winter before. He owed a regional lender against equipment he no longer owned, and the supper club had felt at first like a way to cover the gap without bothering me, except I wasn't unreachable. I was 3 states away, answering my phone the entire time. He knew that. If the people closest to you only tell the truth after you've already found the paperwork yourself, was the decision ever really shared? He asked if there was a way to keep this between family. I told him a forged signature stopped being a family matter the moment somebody else's name went on a bank form pretending to be mine, and he went quiet in a way that told me he'd been hoping I wouldn't say at first Founders Day was 2 days out. The relaunch Lucinda would have turned 84. The one Renata had already rebranded in the front window as a by-invitation preview for the supper. Club's regulars. I kept the date. I wasn't moving Founders Day. I was changing who it was actually for. Founders Day arrived bright, and by 6 o'clock Main Street was full town council. 2 reporters from the county paper, regulars who'd eaten breakfast at that counter for 30 years, and Renata at the door, greeting people like she still believed it was hers to host. It wasn't, though. I came straight from my last hospital shift, 2 states over, badge still clipped to my scrubs. Because there hadn't been time to change, and because some part of me wanted my mother to see exactly who'd walked in, not a rescuer, just her daughter, still in her work clothes, the way Lucinda used to walk that floor in an apron, stained from the lunch rush. I didn't raise my voice. I waited until the room gave me its attention on its own. The way rooms do when somebody stops performing and starts being still. I let the silence do the talking first. I set 3 documents on the counter where the register used to ring up Lucinda's coffee for 40 cents. The deed, 1 name on it. The loan application beside my real signature, the forgery plain enough that strangers leaned in to see the difference. And the county health department's notice filed that morning, requesting the supper club cease until a proper permit was filed. All 3 real. I know how this looks to some people, like family should always get a private chance before anything goes public. I used to believe that too. But privacy was exactly what let this run for 14 months. Public was the only thing that actually worked. If you had 30 seconds to choose between humiliating someone and simply telling the truth, which one would actually feel like justice? Renata reached for the loan application first, the way people reach for the evidence closest to them, as if proximity could undo it. "Your mother makes people uncomfortable," she said to me once, weeks ago, when I'd asked why she'd been moved to the closet. We needed someone who fits the room. I'd kept that. I repeated it back to her in front of everyone, word for word. The room went very quiet. "I'm not asking you to apologize to me," I told her. "I'm asking you to apologize to the woman you just described." When a reporter asked that a fraud report was already filed with the bank and that the county had logged the health code complaint that morning, both now a matter of record, not a family argument. The licensing inquiry was rescinded by the grocery chain within the week, once their legal team saw the same documents. None of it needed me to raise my voice a single time. My mother came around the counter in her own apron, the good one, the one she hadn't worn in 3 weeks, and started pouring coffee like she'd never stopped. Patrick stayed near the door all evening, not quite inside, not quite gone. Renata and Sylvie left before the cake was cut. Nobody stopped them. Nobody needed to. The supper club never reopened under that name. The diner did. The next morning, 6 a.m., same as Lucinda, ever ran at my mother behind the counter where she belonged. The recipe box back on its shelf, exactly where I'd put it myself the day this all started. I think about that closet sometimes, and the napkins nobody asked her to fold. And I've landed on this The people who love you loudest in a crisis aren't always the ones who noticed you were missing in the first place. Loud love and noticing are not the same thing. My mother spent 3 weeks being quietly erased by people who called themselves family, and it took one daughter with a deed and a flight home to put her name back where it belonged behind her own counter, with nobody's permission required. If somebody in your family has ever made you feel like a guest in something you built, hit like for her, not for me. Drop the moment that did it for you. And subscribe, because when family revenge strikes, the quiet ones are usually the most dangerous to underestimate. She didn't need permission. She had Lucinda's deed and her own name on it,